One of my favorite boot leathers is Horween's Waxed Flesh. Over time, the patina develops to show the rough out nap, and if the undercolor is lighter than the color of the wax, a color contrast is shown off. The problem is, it is a tough leather, and it takes a while to show the patina. G'day, welcome back to Bootlosophy, and my name is Tek. Nani gadij nina, wajak nunga buja. Horween's Waxed Flesh is one of my favorite leathers, but I do have a love-hate relationship with it. For one, it's tough and it resists wear. It's also very water repellent. When it does wear and the wax flakes off, a beautiful nappy effect starts to show through. It makes a great work boot leather as well as, for boot collectors, a casual boot leather. On the other hand, it's tough and it resists wear. So if you bought it to show off the patina, you need to wear it a lot. For boot collectors with a reasonable rotation where maybe you don't wear the same boot more than once or twice a week, there's no better argument to enter a waxed flesh boot in the Stitch Down Patina Thunderdome competition, where you have to wear a boot for 9 months solid and then be judged on the patina at the end. But first, let's talk about what is waxed flesh. In this video, I'm going to be referring to 3 models. The Parkhurst Allen boot in brown waxed flesh, the White's MP in cinnamon waxed flesh, and the classic Truman Stitch Down 79 last in Java waxed flesh. By the way, if you go to my website, bootlosophy.com, these Truman boots are for sale at the moment. But if you're watching this video later, they may have gone. Go take a look. Now, you can see basically the same characteristics on all 3 boots. I mean, in part, they look like polished full-grain leather. And in other parts, they look like suede. And what's peeking out is different. In one case, just brown. In another, a kind of yellowish undertone. And in the Java, a kind of coffee mid-brown. Hence the names of the variations, brown, cinnamon, and Java waxed flesh. Now, while other tanneries are also now making waxed flesh, the most popular and earliest is from Horween, the multi-generational historic tannery in Chicago in the US. It's their version of French waxed calf. The way it's tanned is very similar to Chrome Excel. In fact, it's exactly the same. But then it's dried for about a week to produce a tightness in the hide, and then it's turned inside out to a rough out. The rough flesh side is dyed a base color, whether brown or cinnamon or whatever. Even these days, olive and other colors come. Then the dyed flesh side is glazed with coats and coats of hot wax until it's well protected and ends up with a unique luster. When you get a new waxed flesh boot, you really have to look closely to see that it's not a lustrous grain surface, but actually a wax coat over a rough out nap, flattened down and made lustrous. The hand is smooth and the temper a little stiff as compared to supple and flexible Chrome Excel. As you wear it, rolls start to develop rather than creases because of the structure that the thick coats of wax give the leather. In time though, as you slip your footing during normal wear and tear and you scratch and scuff the leather, as you accidentally kick things or get onto rocks and things, some of the wax scrapes off. It just wears off and shows off the underlying rough out nap in whatever color it was dyed. Takes time though. Now often waxed flesh is confused with waxed suede like Charles F. Stead's Waxy Commander, as seen on this Grant Stone Edward boot. On the surface it starts off looking similar, but apart from the way that the waxed suede is made, there are visual and sensual differences. The waxed suede has a thinner coat of wax, and so you don't get confused that it's smooth grain leather. You can clearly see the suede nap underneath it. It also actually feels a bit thinner and not as smooth to the touch when it's new. Now, waxed suede is a split leather, unlike the full grain waxed flesh. Unless it's an English rough out suede, it's actually the bottom half of a split hide. The bottom of that split is the rough out side, and the top is sanded and buffed to produce a smooth suede nap. Then the wax is infused in the tanning rather than coated on top. The wear characteristic is different because of that. The wax wears off almost immediately in the creases and folds as you walk, and the undertones appear almost immediately. You don't have to wait as long for the undernap to show as in the waxed flesh. Now let's introduce the boots I'm looking at today. And by the way, just to remind you that if you like this video, don't forget to click on the like button and subscribe if you're not already subscribed. I'm going to show you the boots in order of newness. My newest waxed flesh boot is this Parkhurst stitched down Allen boot in brown waxed flesh. Now I bought this in June of 2024, so it's my most recent waxed flesh boot, and it shows. To be totally honest, I haven't had a chance to wear it much at all because in June of 24, I bought 4 pairs of Parkhursts. And with boots coming in all the time every month, I still have boots from that period to actually break in. However, I did get a chance to wear these on a trip up north in March of this year, in 25, where I had them on my feet for a whole week in Katherine in the Northern Territory. And that's where it got most of these knocks. The second boot I'll show you is the White's MP in cinnamon waxed flesh. I bought these in May or June of 2022 from eBay. So in fact, they had been worn before I got them and broken in by the previous owner. However, if you go see my review of these boots, you'll see that he hadn't really worn them much because they didn't fit him. So most of these scrapes and knocks have come from me. Then the third boot, which I also bought from eBay in August of 2022, but the previous owner had worn them quite well, and when I got them, it was about half worn as much as they are now. I think despite the fact that I bought them after the MP boots, these have been worn for longer, as evidenced by the old stitch-down style of construction which Truman abandoned a long time ago. So let's look at the patina from the newest to the oldest or most worn. The Parkhurst is my newest waxed flesh boot. I would guess that since June of 24, I've worn these right through a full day, maybe 40 or 50 full days. Most of that was walking around my house or in my office or walking around the neighborhood, other than that week that I did wear them when I went to the outback town of Katherine during the wet cyclonic season. I don't think you can count any of those wears, except maybe for that week in Katherine, as examples of hard wearing. I have for sure not done any gardening or carpentering or much stuff in the garage in them. So imagine, I guess, a normal person owning these for a couple of months and wearing them every other day. And this is what they look like. You can see the rolls developing in the vamp as well as in the shaft here. And therefore some scuffs around the toes and the shaft and the heels. Most of these are from rocks in the outback. If anything, this shows you that waxed flesh is very, very tough and the wax does not rub or flake off like waxy Commander suede. Okay, so now let's look at the next oldest boot, the MP. When I first got them, I wore them all the time. I love my MP boots, and I probably rotated them every other day for several months. I also wore them when I went up north to places like Broome, Derby and Kununurra, and into the cattle stations around there. And I also had a few less boots then. I've tailed off them in the last couple of years because I do have so many nice boots. So twist my arm and say that maybe I've probably worn them, I don't know, 300 or so full days over nearly 3 years. Add to that my guess of the original owner, let's just say maybe 350 wears or so in total. The equivalent then is maybe a normal guy has worn them every couple of days for a couple of years, something like that. Again, not in a manual labor situation around the house and walks around the neighborhood. And you'll have seen from my videos and Instagram that I did take them for a hike on seaside cliffs and across some forests and so on. There is definitely more wear as shown by the deepening rolls on the vamp, the softness starting to show in the shaft, and the scrapes and scuffs, even just from the normal wear and the hiking. The yellowish cinnamon base color is showing here and there, and in some of the deeper scuffs, a bit of nappiness is coming out, not a lot. This ain't going to win any Thunderdome, but it's getting there. And then finally, let's take a look at probably the most worn boot, the Java Waxed Flesh from Truman. Now, Truman stopped making stitch-down boots in 2018. I bought these in 2022, so the previous owner owned these for nearly 4 years. I'm going to go out on a limb and say he was a boot collector rather than a manual labourer, using these as work boots, because they really didn't show 4 years of hard wear when I bought them. I mean, look at the wear on the heel. It's not a great deal. You know, I can't even begin to put a number of wears on them when I got them. But I will insert a photo here of their toe cap when I first got them, and you can judge for yourself. Since I did get them, I haven't worn them much except maybe for a week working at my wife's investment property, where I helped her to replace a reticulation in the garden and pull out a lot of bushes and trees, prune a hell of a lot more, and I dug holes to plant yet more. I've said elsewhere that the 79 last is not my best fitting last, so I haven't automatically pulled them out all the time. In fact, if they're still available on my website, it would be a lucky find for their next owner. As you can see, there's a lot of life left in these. Nevertheless, you can see how the wax flesh is developing, in even the toes where I was on my knees. There are a lot of scrapes and scratches and scuffs, and yet the leather stands out as unharmed and still tough. It's just a wax surface. What's happened is probably that it's got prettier because of the scuffs and scratches at the heels and the sides, with the nappy brown rough out definitely showing. If you go into the Truman website, there is the link down below, you will see this picture of an old pair of Java Waxed Flesh boots and their absolute suede-like nappiness. There's hardly any wax left. Now, because of their toughness, and let's be honest, because I really wanted them to scuff and crack, I haven't conditioned any of these boots. In my opinion, the base tannage being a Chrome XL, pumped full of oils and waxes anyway, and the overcoat of hard wax means that you don't really need to condition these, unless maybe you go swimming in them every day and pull out all the natural oils and waxes in seawater. However, if I ignore websites like Truman, who do spruik their own proprietary conditioners, others generally suggest either a creamy conditioner like, say, Venetian Shoe Cream or Big 4 or Sophia's Cream, or a very waxy conditioner like Smith's Leather Balm or a heavy beeswax conditioner, or even Sophia Pate Deluxe for smooth leathers. I think, and this is my guess as I haven't done it, I think the creamier conditioners will condition the leather for sure, but maybe dampen down the scuffed areas, but not actually wax over them so you can still see the wear. They may darken that nap though. I think the waxier conditioners will actually apply a layer of wax again, and this might wax over some of that nap showing. So if that's not what you want, just maybe avoid those. Ultimate though, if you really do want to reapply a waxy surface, you can use the waxy conditioners, or even use an Otter wax bar to rub the wax all over them and then melt it in with a low setting heat gun. Just be careful, test a small area first. So in summary, waxed flesh is such a tough leather, and because of its rough out base, maybe even tougher than thick, smooth, full grain leathers. Certainly it doesn't scratch as much on the full grain. The wax surface takes a lot of abuse to wear it off. You will need to keep it clean, of course, so brushing is advisable and just wiping with a damp cloth if it gets dirty. And consider spraying it with a waterproofer after a while, like Red Wing's Leather Protector. As a casual boot leather, I don't think you'd be disappointed in it. If you do wear it hard, it will look even better. So off you go. Go and get a pair for your collection. Hey, but before that, don't forget to click on like and subscribe. It really helps this channel get out there. And come back next week to more reviews and boots and gear stuff. Until then, take care out there and see you again soon.